Now we are going to talk about solving for a given variable. So you're going to be given an equation that has multiple variables, multiple numbers in it. Probably not something that you guys have seen before, but you're going to be able to solve for a given variable. So step one, distribute or simplify if you can. So distribute or simplify if you can. Step two, decide what's happening and do the reverse opposite or that inverse operation. Let's go ahead and start with number one. So number one is already as simple as it can be here. Number one says solve 6 equals mx plus b for x. Well, we're solving for x here. So we need to decide what is happening to x. And it's okay that there are other variables. I do not want you guys to freak out with the fact that there's an m and a b and a 6 here. You can still solve for a given variable. Just treat those variables like numbers, okay? Treat them as if you were solving for an equation, as if they were numbers. So if I want to solve for x, first we want to decide what's happening to x. Well, the first thing happening would be that it's being multiplied by m, right? Order of operations would tell me that it's being multiplied by m first. Then it would tell me that it's being added by b. So then you need to do the reverse opposite of that. Instead of adding b and multiplying by m, we need to subtract b and divide by m. So we have 6 equals mx plus b. Remember, you're basically treating those variables as if they're numbers in a regular equation. So, step one, instead of adding b, subtract b. Well, 6 minus b cannot be simplified because they're not like terms, so that just becomes 6 minus b equals mx. Then, how do we solve for x? Well, we can divide both sides by m. And x equals 6 minus b over m. And that is actually your final answer here, okay? 6 minus b over m. You cannot combine anything here. You cannot simplify anything here. That is how you're going to leave it. Okay, number two. My first recommendation would be to solve this as if you're solving, if you see something like this, solve it as if you're solving a proportion, okay? So you want to solve for k. Well, let's first pretend like we're dealing with a proportion here. X times 6 is 6x equals 1 times 4 minus k, which is just 4 minus k. Okay, anytime you see a fraction written like that with some variables in it, I recommend that you cross multiply. You use the cross product rule for ratios and proportions. Remember that x is technically over 1, so you can always put a variable over 1 or a number over 1. So then from here, let's decide what's happening to k. Well, the first thing that's actually happening to k, and this is kind of where it gets tricky, is that it's being multiplied by -1, because there's technically a -1 in front of here. Then it's being added by 4 because this is a positive 4. So then we need to do the reverse opposite. Instead of adding 4, we subtract 4. Instead of multiplying by -1, we divide by -1. Anytime you see that you have like a negative x or a negative y, it's the same thing as being multiplied by a -1. So then from here, we're going to subtract 4, and we get 6x minus 4, which cannot be combined, right? Because 6x and 4 are not like terms. Then we divide everything by -1. When we divide by a negative, all we end up doing is changing the signs of everything. So the negative 1k becomes a positive k. The 6x becomes a negative 6x. And the negative 4 becomes a positive 4. So k equals negative 6x plus 4 in this case. Let's go ahead and look at number 3. Number 3 says a equals p plus prt. Solve for t. Well, nothing that we can simplify here. No cross multiplication going on, nothing like that, no distribution. So let's go from here. In this case, we're solving for t. So we need to decide what is happening to t. Well, it looks like it's being multiplied by r and p. So step 1 is that it's being multiplied by pr. Then it's being added, okay, because the p is positive, by p. So we need to do the reverse opposite. Instead of adding p, subtract p. Instead of multiplying by pr, divide by pr. So we have a is equal to p plus prt. And we said step 1 is to subtract p. Well, if we subtract p from the right, it disappears. If we subtract p from the left, this just becomes a minus p, because they are not like terms. You cannot subtract them from one another. They just stay next to each other. Then over here, we have prt left. We can divide by p and r separately, or we could just divide both sides by pr. And we get those to cancel out. And we get a minus p over pr equals t. And that is as simple as we can make that. Okay, so the most important one that you are going to need to know how to do is number 4. This is the most important one. You are going to use this throughout the entire year, really, in the next and in years to follow as well. So let's go ahead and do number 4. It says to solve for y. Well, what is happening to y in this case? It's being multiplied by negative 4. Then the 3x is positive, so added by 3x. So you're going to do the reverse opposite. Instead of adding 3x, you're going to subtract 3x. Instead of multiplying by negative 4 to y, you are going to divide by negative 4 to y. So from here, we are going to subtract 3x, subtract 3x. This becomes negative 4y equals equals 12 minus 3x. Then from here, instead of multiplying by negative 4, we can divide by negative 4. In this case, those cancel. We're left with y equals, and actually you can either leave it as 12 minus 3x over negative 4, or you can simplify it and divide each of those out. 12 divided by negative 4 is negative 3, and negative 3x over negative 4 is positive 3/4 x. And actually, I prefer that you take that division, if you can divide by number, and divide it out to get this one right here. That's going to be best. Let's go ahead and do one more example here. Let's go ahead and do number 8. Number 8 says to solve for x. Well, what's happening to x is it's being multiplied by 3, then subtracted by 2a. So we're going to do the reverse opposite. We are going to add 2a, where we get 3x, and actually, this has not happened yet, but we can actually combine the 7a and the 2a to get 9a. Then, from here, we're going to divide by 3, because it's being multiplied by 3, so we need to do the inverse operation here. And we get x is equal to 9 divided by 3, which is 3a. For examples number 7 and number 10, you're going to want to do some cross multiplication. And number 11, again, these are the most important ones, and actually we're going to go through this example, and then you guys will be done. Well, what's happening to y? Well, the first thing happening to y, order of operations, tells me that it would be being multiplied by 5 first. So like if you were to plug a number in for y, it would say 5 times this, and then you would add that after. Then it's being added by 2x. So we need to do the reverse opposite. Instead of adding 2x, subtract 2x. And we get 5y equals 10 minus 2x. Then from here, we have 5y. How do we get rid of something that's being multiplied by 5? Divide everything by 5. And this becomes y is equal, again, you could either have it like this, 10 minus 2x over 5, but I prefer that you actually divide each of them out. It will help you in the long run. 10 divided by 5 is 2, and this just becomes negative 2/5 x.